Ready?
Sure thing.
Excellent. Well, Justen Overlander, right?
That's
Uh,
correct.
and
Yeah.
you're a
Oh,
producer for The Chosen? Is that,
yes.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Associate producer is the official title
Okay,
of
okay.
the.
Well, we're extremely thankful for you making the time to do this. We're huge fans of the show, and we've all been just ecstatic that we got a chance to talk to you guys. The people in our church are super excited when they heard about it. They're all excited, so we're very happy to be able to do this. Thank you for taking some time for us.
Well, and I'm sorry that Dallas couldn't be available. I know that you would have loved to have heard from Dallas,
Sure, but that's
but
all right. Maybe some other time we can, but we're happy to talk to you too. We're very happy
great.
about it. How did this show get started? By the way, I mean, how did this whole? I know that a little bit of the story, but why don't you fill us in on how this all started?
Yeah. I mean, at its very core, this was a short film that Dallas did for his church in suburban Chicago. He did the Christmas special, which was called The Shepherd at the time. It was the birth of Jesus told from the perspective of I don't want to use the word crippled. I don't feel like that's PC anymore, but from a shepherd that was using a cane and couldn't walk very well. So, not sure how many of you are familiar with the original
Oh yeah,
short.
I saw it almost
Okay,
when it came out, and I was like, wow, I loved it.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it was
yeah. And
amazing.
he did that super low budget on a friend's farm in Illinois, just outside of the suburbs of Chicago. And it was for his church's Christmas Eve service. And then VidAngel saw it, loved it, and said, "Wow, what can we do with this?" And Dallas had already been throwing around an idea for the story of Jesus's ministry. That's Jesus at zero,
Uh
and
huh.
now Jesus is about 30 when he starts his ministry. So he had this idea floating around in his head for the chosen, and they said, "Yeah, let's go with it." And then they said, "We're going to crowdfund it." And Dallas was like, "Oh man." Because crowdfunding at that point, the top crowdfunded project in history was Mystery Science Theater 3000, the reboot,
Uh
which
huh.
was under $5 million, I think, which is a lot of money. I mean, that kind of money blows my mind still.
Yes.
But to do a multi-season series, even to do the first season, you're talking more than that. So Dallas was a little crestfallen, but we know the story. It worked out. We had over 19,000 people invest over $11 million to make the first season
That's
happen.
incredible.
Yeah. It's again, we can't take the credit for it because this is a God thing
Mm-hmm.
completely. But it's just one of those. Sometimes you just kind of look and say, "Wow, did that really happen?
I
Did
know.
that
Well,
happen?"
see,
I mean,
on the human side of this, I have been for years mystified that nobody would make a good series or movie on the Bible, on the life of Jesus or the life of Paul. It's like they make them and they're horrible. And it's like the story is obviously a bestseller. I mean, right? It's a best-selling book of all-time history. Why don't we just take it and adapt it and dramatize it where you need to, but just take it seriously, right? And it's like, why doesn't anybody do this? So when Dallas puts out the Shepherd one, I'm like, oh wow, this looks really good. And then you guys start releasing the episodes. I'm like, this is great. Finally, somebody's gonna just take it seriously and do it right. And so, I mean, we immediately, with what we could, start contributing. Also, I can see why people wanted to get on board. It's like the first time that I know of where somebody puts out something that's really taking the text seriously. So, I mean, that's why we're so excited about it.
well, and to answer your question from a human perspective, I think the reason it hadn't happened yet is because there's a fear when you're taking scripture and you're putting your own creative license into it. We're not changing the words
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that are recorded in Scripture, but we're adding backstory, plausible backstory
Yes.
that been approved of and spoken into by some of the top biblical experts in the world. So it's not like we're all of a sudden, deciding to give Jesus a mohawk or something. Bad example because physical. I don't care what Jesus looks like. I just,
Mm-hmm.
if he comes back looking like a Smurf, I'm still going to give him the biggest hug imaginable
Right.
because
Right.
that matters to me. But we're not. Jesus is not going to have a romantic relationship. Spoiler alert, because I don't believe biblical.
Right.
But
Right.
but he can say something like, not too shabby.
I know. I love that. Yeah.
And, you know, none,
Well,
it's
see,
not
I think
recorded
you
in
guys
the
have
gospel.
yeah, I think you guys have thread the needle just so perfectly on that, on maintaining the seriousness of the text, and at the same time you're making a TV show and you're dramatizing and you're economizing characters, which I love. So Thomas being the winemaker for the thing of Canaan, I'm like, oh, that's just brilliant. Because you can't, you have certain amount of episodes, certain amount of time, you got to get all these characters moved in, right? I assume. I've never made a TV show, but it's like, you only have so much time. You got to get all these guys moved in, and the way you're doing it, where they're all taking part, I just think I personally think it's fantastic. I think you've taken liberties with the text where it's warranted and made great choices there. I have had no complaints at all. I think it's just fantastic,
Well,
fantastic.
and we're not afraid of complaints. We've had complaints, and we want them. You know,
Mm,
the worst thing that can happen is for everybody to feel the exact same about it, because
mm,
then there's not a really great discussion and dialogue going on. And this is a tool to hopefully bring people back into scripture. And
yes.
so if you see a scene in The Chosen, you're like, wait a minute, I don't think that, no. And you're going back and reading the text, guess what? Victory. You know,
Yes,
that's
that's right.
kind of what we're hoping to do. Either go back to scripture to prove us wrong or to see how it could fit in with what is recorded there. So to finish on my fear thought too, though, is people are so afraid to do that, and that's some of the backlash that we've gotten is just you can't have Jesus say not too shabby. You're giving Simon's wife a name. You're making Simon fish on Shabbat. This is stuff that,
Yeah,
especially in particular faiths like the Catholic faith, does not like the idea of
him being married.
being a gambler, being working on Shabbat. I mean, that does not sit well with them. Even the pain of the birth of Jesus. Mother Mary
Mm,
experiencing pain during childbirth. Some sects, sects of Catholicism really believe that Mary did not experience
yes,
childbirth, and all we do is we say we disagree. And I'm fine if you want to maintain that belief. That it doesn't change who I think Jesus is at all. If you
correct.
want to believe that, that's fine. Just let us believe our particular belief about that. I get sidetracked really easily, Mike. So you got to
No, no,
rein me.
you're
But
good. You're good.
but
Because this is a
the
lot
other
of what
thing,
I wanted to mention, and I pointed out to the people in our church and people I've talked to about this is what I love so much. You guys are approaching this, in my opinion, from a completely fearless perspective, both on the side of the Christians, like you say, that would be like, we want the text, and you can't say a single word that's not in the text or whatever, which I think would be a huge mistake for a TV show, myself, I think. But then you also have the other side. I mean, you guys have really, you really have done some stomping on the PC side as well, where I mean, Jesus actually does real miracles. That's, I don't know if you've ever saw the one that Anthony Hopkins they did with him, where he's Paul, and they try to make it look like he really didn't do any miracles. It was kind of like people misunderstood coincidences, and Paul kind of goes along. I don't know. It's just like, oh, I can't. It's like, even if you don't believe it, if you're going to make a book, a movie, or a show about the Bible, take it seriously and say they're miracles. I mean, it's not like Hollywood doesn't know how to make unbelievable stuff. I mean, who believes Transformers, right? So I don't know. I
oh,
just think you
wait,
guys have
wait,
done
oh,
a
no,
real
wait.
fearless job. By Ru-
Who doesn't believe Transformers?
He's taking
Just
notes now. He's like, I have to
sip
look
my
into that.
coffee here and pretend you didn't say that. Okay, but you believe Jurassic Park is real, right?
Oh, obviously.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, we're on the same page. But we intentionally stayed out of Hollywood for those very reasons, because Hollywood takes a story like this and wants to have add Hollywood embellishments to it. We
Mm.
saw what happened with who did the Noah's Ark one.
Oh, Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe acted in it. Yeah,
I
for some
forget the,
the,
was it
the
Emmerich,
filmmaker.
or I can't
Uh,
remember now who
I,
the
I, I
director
I
was.
don't remember. Now I'm embarrassing myself, and the longer I try to think about it, the more embarrassed I'm
It's
going.
all right.
But you
No,
have,
they just butchered it.
yeah, and they're using the Bible as inspiration. There's that whole based on a true story or inspired by a true story. And the inspired by a true story gives you a whole lot more artistic license. And Hollywood likes to take inspiration from the Bible, where we're taking the Bible as the truth and just presenting it as the truth, and adding a little bit of backstory and not changing anything about it that's going to really mislead people that aren't familiar with Scripture. And hopefully, people that aren't familiar with Scripture will then become familiar with Scripture and want to
Excellent.
get a
Yes,
little bit.
exactly. I mean, I have recommended the show to a lot of my unbelieving friends and coworkers and stuff as a tool to say, hey, why don't you watch this? They're not, a lot of people don't read today as much as they used to anymore, and so saying read the Gospels, that might not they might not start there, but I've gotten people really interested in the Gospels and interested in the message of Christ by watching this show because it's just so well done. It's very interesting, and and when they see it, they're going to be very close to the text. I mean, it is the message of the text dramatized, but it's very good in that way.
Yeah,
Um, the it, so yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the fearlessness of you guys on it is the miracles are real, taking the divinity of Christ seriously. All of these things, I was just very, very happy to see those. And then like the message of Christ that, and especially with Nicodemus, where he's like, I'm not here for, we'll say social justice. I'm not here to save you from Rome. I'm here to save souls. And it's like, wow, because I mean, how hard is it to resist that urge to, because of the way things are going? I mean, there's a lot of pressure to try to make Jesus be the social justice warrior and coming here to free people. I mean, how free people from servitude as opposed to sin. Is it
right. Well,
difficult to resist that, or is your
no,
team pretty committed to that?
for me personally, it's not difficult at all. In fact, I have a strong opposition to the Santa Claus gospel. I don't believe that God is up there taking our list of prayers and just saying, "Okay, you've been good. I'm going to grant you this prayer." No, God's got a master plan with all of this. And I had a college professor that talked about the supermarket Jesus. You don't go to the grocery store when you don't need anything. Well, unless you're my dad. My dad managed to go to the grocery store, and my mom gives him a hard time about that. He'll go for like they run out of one ingredient. He has to go get some pepper or something, and he'll come back with 3 gallons of ice cream and a pie and chips and all that. Anyway, the supermarket Jesus, you generally don't go to the supermarket or the grocery store until you need something. And so this idea of, God, I don't need you now. Leave me alone. I'm busy doing my own thing. Okay, now I need you. I'm hungry. Okay, give me a cheeseburger. I need it. That's not my view of Jesus. That's not my view of the way God works. And so the temptation to try to make him this social justice warrior that comes in and fixes everything, no. That's not even close to something that I'm concerned about. But I don't have a huge part in the creative side of the show. I mean, that's Dallas's vision, and then his co-writers Ryan Swanson and Tyler Thompson are phenomenal. Ryan is just an outstanding structure guy, so he makes the storylines weave together. Tyler is just a poet with some of his dialogue and some of just the way those three write together.
Mm.
It is just, again, it's a God thing, bringing them together, forming them for this project at this point. So I can't speak on their behalf of whether it's tempting to want to make Jesus a little bit more, yeah, I'm here. Let me fix this. But I know that they are so grounded in the text, and,
Yes.
and so committed to making sure that we don't steer off of the text and just make this. I know there are gospel or I use the term gospel loosely, but there are messages out there. There are whole ministries built around this idea of prosperity,
Yes.
or the Santa Claus God, or you just got to will it to happen. You just got to pray harder, and then it will happen.
Hmm.
That is not true.
I
It is
agree.
patently false, and that's not something that we are trying to portray in Jesus. We're not making Jesus this warrior that's going to defeat Rome or anything. And he even says that to the kids. Don't expect Messiah to be coming in on a tall horse. He says to the
Hmm. Hmm.
kids at the campsite in episode 3. And that's something that we as believers, and when we're telling the message of Jesus to non-believers, we have to be clear that it's not Jesus's job to fix everything. The Casting Crowns song. Sometimes you calm the storm, sometimes you calm the
Yes,
child.
that's
That's
right.
it is. It's more of this inside out approach to the way Jesus works in our lives. It's not that he's going to calm all the storms around us, but he can, if we allow him to, calm the storms within.
That's
And
right.
so that's my approach to Jesus. So that's a long way of answering your
No,
question.
that's really good. That's a great answer. One thing in the show that to me was like, I think my favorite detail in the entire show, and to me it was my favorite one because of the message and it ties into what you're saying, but also it just to me showed how strong the writing is. And that is that you have this blind woman at Shabbat with Jesus at Mary Magdalene's house, and then she's back again at Zebedee's house listening to Jesus preach, and he never heals her. I just thought that was just brilliant. So you have this person who, and she's not asking, she's not leaving, doesn't seem to in the show to this point, no interest in that. She's interested in what he has to say and what his teaching is, and what he's there for real. And even when he's healing the paralytic, she's not like, oh, me too, me too. Well, look over. It's like I'm like, oh, and it's just so subtle. It's so non-Hollywood, right? There's no flashback, and it's just there, and some people notice it, some don't. I notice it right. I'm like, oh, this is so great. I love how they're doing this.
I love that you picked up on that for a couple of reasons. First, it's intentional. That those are the difficult questions, especially as believers, when we get asked by non-believers. You know, you had a whole warrior of prayers praying to cure that cancer, and she still died. Why?
Yeah,
Why? If this is, and I'm using a specific example. I'm thinking of a specific woman who was, I think, mid to late 50s, just a wonderful woman of God, family woman, um, and she contracted cancer and passed away. How do you answer questions like that?
yeah,
My youngest sister was killed by a drunk driver at 18 years old, and do you think that I didn't pray for her safety all the time when I was growing up? Of course I did. So bad stuff happens.
yeah.
And it's not God's job to come in and intervene every single time, because if he does, then we have no need for him. you
Correct.
know, we're just puppets, we're just pawns, and we're walking around knowing that, no matter what Wile E. Coyote is doing up there on the ledge, that anvil is not going to fall on our head because God's going to put an umbrella of protection over us. So I'm getting more theological than I want
No,
to
that's
get,
all
but
right. We like
but
that.
I love that you picked up on Shula is the
Yes.
character's name. That yeah, she's blind, but she's not tugging at Jesus's coat saying, "Heal me, please heal me." And that's kind of what we do as Christians. We go, Jesus, get just a little more money, okay, just a little more.
Yeah.
Okay, fix the car, okay, that rattle in the car, don't make me take it in. I've had this cold for 3 weeks. Jesus, take the cold away. I mean, we go up with this palm up mentality of gimme, 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 and rarely do we put that palm down and say, here, Jesus, here's what I want to do for you. Is that acceptable? Can I do this for you? What can I do for you?
Mm,
And
very
I'm
good.
as guilty of it as anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here across from you saying that I've got this all figured out. But it's this gimme, 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 gimme.
Yeah.
This, and yeah,
Many of us tend to be like her friend. I forget the character's name, but the man that's with her in both scenes. And he's like, "Hey, I heard you turn the water into wine. Can you do that to my well?" Which I thought was a great line.
yeah, yeah. Barnaby,
Yeah.
Ayok is a look. I always mispronounce his name. A look. I'm gonna butcher his name, but he's such a funny guy and just such a great
Yes.
guy on set. We had a lot of fun on set together. But yeah, the way he delivers that line, and then the episode 2, he has a line. This is Shula. She's blind.
Yeah. Yeah. She's blind. He's like,
Because
I.
we all have that friend, right?
Yeah.
We all have that Captain Obvious that you're watching a football game with, and they get the first down, and somebody has to say, "Oh, there's the first down." Yeah, I saw it. Jason Witten saw it. We all saw it.
Yeah.
See how I brought Jason Witten into the conversation?
Yeah.
Because or are you a Texans fan? I mean, you got to be a Cowboys fan, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, oh,
I'm a Packers fan.
well,
Oh, he's from Minnesota.
I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm sporting my Twins love here, and you gotta bring up Packers stuff. Ugh.
He's like, interview's over. I didn't know I was with heathen.
You know what's been cool is because of The Chosen, I've been able to communicate with a few higher profile people. And Kirk Cousins, my quarterback,
Oh,
liked the show and actually gave us a quote that we could use on a meme. So we're
nice.
besties now.
Oh yeah.
Great, like three emails, but no,
Yeah.
he's a good guy. One of those guys that just wears his faith on his sleeve,
Yes.
and for that reason alone, I'm a huge fan of his, and he happens to be a pretty decent quarterback
I'm
too.
a
So
fan of his as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
good guy.
He is a good guy. The one of the another tied into all of that was the whole discussion Jesus has with the apostles when they're on the episode 8. They're on their way to on the way to the see that they don't know, but to the woman at the well in the Samaritan village, and then they're like upset because like Samaria and they did all this to us, and then he says, well, you guys did this to them, or Jews did this to the Samaritans, and then he says, but none of you were ever alive when any of this happened. And I don't know if it was intentional at the time or prescient or it just worked out, but it ties in with everything going on in our country right now. We have all these grievances from people that have legitimate complaints about something that happened 100 years ago. And I just love the answer that was there. And I don't know if you guys intended it to kind of throw a rock in that direction or it just happened, but I just thought it was a great answer of that, no one was alive then. Why don't we work on what we have now?
Right. Yeah, I can't speak into that. I don't know for sure what Ryan, Tyler, and Dallas were trying to do with that. My assumption is probably not trying to be too on the nose with modern times or anything, because really is trying to stick faithful with the text.
Hmm.
But that's the thing about Scripture. It applies today just as well as it applied when it was written.
That's
And
exactly right.
we have we're just walking guilt factories, because of something somebody did 200 years ago, and now we're tearing down statues of people that made poor decisions. 99% of their life may have been great,
Mm.
but 1% of being a butthead, of being a doorknob, and now all of a sudden their entire legacy is blown. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
yeah, I thought that the answer they gave, whether it's purposefully for this or just like you say, is just the way scripture works, that it's so applicable to broad truth and
Mhm.
and whatever. I just thought it was a great answer to what they were saying. It's like, yes, we did bad things, they did bad things, but none of us were there, and now we're here to save souls and not condemn them. And it just, I knowing the full story, you read it and you're like, oh, I love the way that answer to that and how he
Well,
deals with it.
I, you do bad things now, Mike. I do bad
Sure.
things now. I mean, last night I'm coaching flag football for my third grade son and his team, and the coach on the other sideline shouts out, "He went out of bounds! He went out of bounds! He went out of bounds!" And my kids stopped running. And so I yell at the coach. I say, "That's not your call to make. Run, run!" And so my kid then continued to run. But I'm like, "That's the ref's call to make." And the coach starts yelling at me. I said, "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. You want me to say he's in bounds?" I said, "No, you just let the ref make." But we hashed it out afterwards. But it's just that emotion, And I don't want people to think I'm this hothead. I mean, it's third grade
Yeah.
flag. I'm not trying to make it more than what it is, but I don't want people to think that I'm some hot-headed, arrogant, I got to tell the other coach what to do. And we had a wonderful conversation afterwards, and I thanked him, and I said, it ended up being a wonderful teaching moment for that kid to go till the whistle blows. And he said, "No, yeah, no," and I said, "I would have done the same thing." And he did step out of bounds, and the ref missed it, so it worked out.
He was being very honest.
Yeah, but I made the mistake. I
Yeah,
made the
yeah.
mistake of letting my emotions get to me, and again, I don't want to be judged on that. I want to be judged on the fact that I try to just be a good, positive male adult role model to these kids, hopefully,
Correct.
and play some football along the way.
I also really appreciate on the show how they've used how they've taken the text and the teachings of Christ in a way that I don't find often, even in pulpits and stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's right or wrong. I prefer it, but I like it a lot. So it's like where Jesus's parables, instead of being like this mystical truth that had to be that way, it's like he's tailoring it to his listener. So with Peter, he's a fisherman. He says, "I'm gonna make you a fisherman of men." And then I think it's Andrew, um, no, it's Thaddeus, who's the stonemason. He says, we're going to build a kingdom that's stronger than stone. And then you have who is the other one that they mentioned? Thomas and Matthew. I'm going to give you a new way to count. I just love the way that it's like Jesus saying, I'm using these parables because and these metaphors be tailored to my listeners. And and it's the overall truth that matters here, and I'm using these metaphors to try to make it to however fits your way of understanding. I really liked that a lot about how they did that.
Well, he's the greatest teacher to ever live, the
Correct.
the greatest, and it's not even close. And the fact that he used parables and used parables tailored to whomever he was talking to kind of tells us that today we need to adapt. And my background is in teaching, actually,
Mm,
and so I was an elementary school teacher, and we studied learning styles. And some are visual. I'm a highly visual, tactile. I like to. I can't do things in simulation form. I have to actually do it. So I learn best that way. And then there are others that are very, very audible. They learn by listening. They can sit through a 2-hour lecture. If I'm in a 2-hour lecture, I'm tuned out 2 minutes in. So
yeah.
I am not a big sermon guy because I struggle to stay focused on sermons. Jesus knows that. Jesus knows how to speak to me.
Mm,
Jesus knows how to speak to you, and it's probably slightly different. You
yeah.
know, it's just the greatest teacher that ever lived knows that the audience matters. And you can say one thing to one audience and it can be interpreted completely wrong, completely incorrectly, and say the exact same thing to a different audience and it lands.
Mm,
And you, as the teacher, following in the footsteps of the greatest teacher, have to figure out how to know which audience is which, and that's the challenge. But yeah, you're correct in recognizing that in the chosen, we're aware of, and I use we loosely. Dallas, Ryan, and Tyler are aware of the fact that Jesus spoke depending on the audience and tailored his message for
hmm.
everybody, and
Yeah,
it's
and you
all of.
see that a lot with the one with the kids where he brings it down. I mean, he's making farting sounds and all kinds of stuff, right? And it's like I like that. It's like
Yeah.
he's coming to whatever level they're at and dealing with them to reach them. And I think that was just brilliant in that. How did you get involved in this?
So Dallas and I met years ago at a small convention here in Minnesota. He had just his movie What If had come out recently, and so we screened the movie, and he was on hand and talked to the audience, and then he led a class or something, and ended up. I could say it was by chance. I don't know. Probably wasn't by chance, but we ended up sitting together at lunch and had a good conversation. And at that point, I was writing. Um, I was writing screenplays, and most of them were faith relevant or faith friendly, but not faith based.
Right.
And Dallas's first couple movies that he produced were of that same um, ilk, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where we as Christians, we want to make our message as accessible to non-believers as it is to believers. And so I was critical of some of these overtly faith-based projects, the ones that had a really hard-nosed message and seemed to be just kind of shoving scripture down your throat. I didn't think that those were the right tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I realized, man, this choir needs a whole lot of preaching too. So we can't forget about the choir just because we want to go out and get the people standing on the street. So I think there's room for both approaches, the overtly faith-based, and I think there's room for secular, and I think there's room for something in between. But Dallas told me you're not going to find success in trying to do something. It's almost like you're trying to trick the audience.
Mm.
And I don't remember if he used those exact words or not, but he said, don't write something that you are trying to get to a secular audience in order for them to receive a faith-based message. That's just, and this was 7 or 8 years ago. So I don't remember what was. I mean, I suppose Marvel was big back then. I mean, all these tentpole movies that have, biblical, messages behind them. Some of them do. I mean, Lord of the Rings certainly
Sure,
does.
of course,
Of
yeah.
course.
And like
Um,
the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, obviously, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think on a smaller scale, I can't do anything big budget like that. I'm not at that point. But for then, I was trying to do like romantic comedies that were, they were secular, but they were all, the couple wasn't going to sleep together on the first date. I mean, here's
Yeah,
me. Nobody's going to say, "Oh my God," nobody's going to say some of these phrases that have just been acceptable, even on, network TV,
mhm,
Nickelodeon, Disney Channel. I mean, they can say "OMG" all they want, and it's driving me crazy. So
yes.
my subtle nod was to try to do some projects like that. And then my first project was not even remotely faith based. It was based on what I had read. Do a horror movie. You know, that's the only way to do a low budget movie and get recognition. So I did that. And I still did my. Nobody's going to take the name in vain in this. They can say other things, okay? And I had a co-writer come in and kind of flower up the language a little bit for me because it's not part of my vernacular when I'm not on a golf.
Correct.
Um, but it I'm losing track of where I was going with this story. Oh, the
Well, yeah, just how you got involved in it all. And
oh
you're saying about, but before you do, because I think that's a great point. Um, one reason I was real reluctant when I first saw they were advertising for The Chosen, the Shepherd, and I normally don't watch them. I'm like, oh, not another Christian movie. I know that sounds terrible coming from a pastor, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone who likes them. The very faith based ones you're talking about. If people like them, that's great. I'm for all of the above element. Like there's something for everybody, and some people really like those. To me, they're all on the nose. It's like hounding on them and preaching it down. It's like to me, that's not what I'm interested in. I want good entertainment. I like it to be wholesome. And if it's going to have a Christian message, I want it to be worked in. I don't want it to be slapped on the script where it just looks like they just nailed it on after. It's like, okay, let's nail the verses in here now. I want it to be really, really well done. So when I first saw the preview or the advertising, I almost didn't watch it. I'm like, oh, I just can't. Like I won't go watch them. My wife goes and watches those Christian movies. I don't go. I'm like, I'm not going. I'm just going to be angry. I don't want to see them. But I thought, well, let's give it a chance. So when I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is so good. This was written, and they're not just smashing everything in. It's really, really well crafted, and and so to me, it was just fantastic that way. But no, mainly as I guess I'm saying as I'm with you on a lot of that, and I think there's a place for Christian entertainment, and it doesn't have to all be scriptures. It can just be a wholesome love story. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And then if we're going to do the life of Jesus, then we do it real, we do it serious, like you're doing. And so to me, that's just brilliant how that's working out. But you were telling me then you got involved, you got in contact with Dallas, and you guys kind of found some common ground in these on these thoughts?
yeah, and so he and I were talking about projects that we wanted to do, and he kind of told me that you either just go all in on the faith element or you just stay away from it altogether.
Mm,
And to your point, Mike, about how the chosen is speaking to you and how some of those really on the nose ones don't, that's another example of the audience. I mean, some people need that on the nose stuff. I grew up in church. I mean, I
mhm.
don't have my coming to faith moment. I've read the Bible cover to cover a handful of times. I mean, I'm not like some. I mean, I know it. So
Yeah.
for me to get John 3:16 blasted to me, I'm like, been there, done that. I know it. And that's not to diminish the value
No,
of
of
a
course
script
not.
like that. I mean, that is so powerful. But when you're talking to somebody outside of the faith and they're just introduced to it for the first time, it's not one of those. Okay, yeah, I know. Okay, John 3:16, Ten Commandments. Yeah, small catechism. Yeah, I got all that. Yep, all of that. there are people that don't have that, and so that's, I think, where some of those movies that you and I can be critical of, I think that's where they can work to
Hmm.
baby Christians, people that are just coming into the faith.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
so Dallas and I did stay in touch then after that convention. He's great about that. We traded phone numbers, so we would text back and forth, Facebook, whatnot. And then I saw, 2 years ago that they were going to launch this new TV series, and then I watched The Shepherd, and I'm like, yeah, dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And all they needed was somebody part time to help out with social media. And for me, I had left teaching. Gosh, maybe 10 years ago now. It's been a while, and I was the stay-at-home parent. I was moonlighting as an actor. I got enough acting gigs to help supplement our income, and then was writing, and made somehow God just always provided and gave just enough. So I was in the industry, but more a parent than anything else. I was raising
Hmm.
my three kids, and that was and still is my most important job. But he and I stayed in touch, and I kept him updated on things that I was doing. He was connected to some people in Hollywood, and through him, I got connected to people in Hollywood. Through other people, I got connected. Moved out to LA, tried my hat out there. Did some fun acting gigs, but didn't really hit. To live out there, you've got to make three times the amount of money you're making in Texas or Minnesota because
Correct.
it's so ridiculously expensive. So that didn't work, and we came back, and so I was at a place where I was kind of thinking about leaving the industry altogether. And I had spent, more than 20 years praying that God would take this desire away because it seemed like so many doors were closing.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I didn't want to keep pursuing something if God wasn't at the center of it. And when we moved back from Los Angeles, I sunk into some pretty significant depression, and I wasn't going to do anything. And I got like I only let one of in small markets you can have multiple talent agents. So I let one of my agents know that I'm back, and I got an audition like the next week or 2 weeks or whatever, and I landed the role. It was for a national commercial, so the pay was decent, and we needed it at that point because we had blown through everything in Los Angeles. But and it was so great to be on set. It was such a fun shoot to do. It was I don't know if this is God or if this is just the world just works. I mean, I I don't know, but the fact that I got that role and that was enough to say, all right, just stay in it. You're supposed. There's a reason for you to stay in the industry because I would
Mm.
have left it all together if not for that role. I'm pretty sure, or I maybe would have still written. But anyway, the you know part-time social media guy. It's not even really film related, but I had the time to do it. And Dallas is like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure. Just count on me." So it was, maybe 10 hours a week or something. And then we're gearing up to the fundraise. A few more hours, and I'm commenting on Facebook, and we didn't have Twitter or Instagram or anything else at that point. It was just Facebook and
Hmm.
a really small YouTube channel, and growing. And now all of a sudden, okay, we're going to shoot season one in Texas. Can you get away into Texas? And my youngest was 6 years old at that point. If he were even a year or two younger, I couldn't have done it.
Mm.
I mean, it and my daughter was 13. So my daughter's 15 now. So when this, it's taken me a long time to get there, but I promise I'm getting there, Mike.
That's fine. That's
Uh,
fine. That's
it's a timing thing because had the chosen happened, and this sounds so selfish of me to say, the chosen would happen without me. The chosen doesn't need me. God doesn't need me for the chosen. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here.
right.
But for me to be involved in the chosen, it had to happen when it happened. Had it happened a year sooner, my daughter wouldn't have been old enough to watch the kids while my wife still worked outside of the home. So my daughter was old enough to make lunch and to be kind of the caregiver at home. If she was even a year younger, we wouldn't have been comfortable with that, and I wouldn't have been able to go to set.
Oh, cool.
You know, so
Yeah.
and where does LA fit into all of this? I don't know. I don't know if that was a necessary part of the journey. I don't regret it. I'm so happy that we did it, and I made so many wonderful connections out there, and my kids loved it. I mean, to grow up in Minnesota where we have winter 6 months out of the year, and to go to California where they're eating lunch outside in January,
Yeah.
they're walking to and from school every day and not bundling up.
Yeah.
Man, you just have you are you originally from Texas?
So I grew up. I was born in Houston, but I grew up in Michigan.
So you get
Yeah,
it.
I get it. Yes. Yes, my dad was a farmer in Michigan, so I lived in Michigan until I was 8, and then we moved to Mexico. Then my dad became a missionary to Mexico, and I grew up then from 8 till about 10 years ago. I was in Mexico. I was a missionary in Mexico for
Oh
25
wow.
years. Yeah. They
So
kicked me out. They deported me.
oh really?
Yes, I got deported from Mexico. I'm one of the only people you'll ever meet that got deported this way.
But there's a whole can of worms we can open up
Oh
there. But
yeah, yeah, but no, let's keep it on you. I'm very interested in your story. So, how was it on set when you guys were filming? How long were you down there or down here, I guess, in Texas?
well, we shot the first 4 episodes of season one in we had a 30-day shoot schedule, and it ended up being 31 because of some weather elements. So I was down there for I think 7 weeks because we weren't 31 consecutive days. We would take our weekend. Well, we wouldn't shoot on the weekends, but we would always have stuff to do,
Right.
whether it's taping a round table with Dallas and the actors or scouting a new location. I mean, I don't know if you know the story about our Sea of Galilee
No,
or
no.
not.
Well, I know a little bit about the fish. I saw the thing about the fish, which I was like, wow, they did a great job because I didn't realize that till he talked about it. But go ahead,
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
even before the miracle of the fish, there was the miracle of the location.
Oh,
They had done some pre-scouting of some different lakes, and as you know, Texas is not a high lake area. I'm in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, which is
yes,
actually more along the lines of 15,000 when you count all the smaller bodies of waters that we still call lakes. So Texas has no natural lakes, right? The only the one on the eastern border with I think Louisiana, right?
mm-hmm,
There's one like natural lake over there, but everything else is a reservoir.
yes,
And so there were record rainfalls while we were down there shooting. So we were facing some major rain issues, and the place that had been scouted before we even started shooting was flooded. Like the water was up 6 feet, 6 to 8 feet higher than what it was when the original scout went. So the 2 days before we're supposed to shoot there, it might have been the day before actually. The timeline gets thrown off a little bit, but it
right.
was over the weekend. We had wrapped on a Friday, and so probably on Saturday we're out scouting this park in Benbrook Lake, and we're going to different sides of the lake, and we can see all the debris left behind from where where the water had crested, and it's 30, 40 yards from the shore. And so this that didn't exist the week before, now we're seeing, okay, is this going to work for our Sea of Galilee? And miraculously it did, because without that, and we had a crew actually drive down to San Antonio. There was a location down there that they were scouting the same time that we were scouting this one in Fort Worth.
Mm.
And so it just, looking back on it now, I get nervous. I get anxiety just thinking about it now because we did not know where we were going to be on Monday morning.
Oh no,
And it worked. It worked out. So
it worked great.
yeah, so 31-day shoot, and the weekends were spent trying to find our next day, our next location in some cases.
So it's pretty
Um,
hectic then. At
it,
least
it,
that
it
it
was.
was.
Yeah, but and I would love to just say, oh, we were all at peace. We knew God would provide. But goodness sakes, when you're in the storm,
Yeah.
I mean, you're the I don't know. Maybe you're probably at a different place in your spiritual walk. But for me,
No.
when I'm in the storm, I'm just like,
No,
why
I'm in
me?
the same place. I think
and
everybody's
then
in the
and then
same
you look
place.
and then you look back and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, maybe I needed to learn something through
Yeah.
that storm so that I can make the same mistake again. Hopefully not in the exact same way, but
Exactly.
yeah. So the first 4 episodes we did down there, August, September, or no, the first four were September, October, November, um, and wrapped just a little before Christmas, and then the next 4 episodes we did the following summer. So we did late
Hmm.
fall, early winter in Texas, which was great, even though it was record cold, and we did get snow just outside of DFW. The next time we did the heat of the summer, like end of June, July,
Nice.
August. The heat index was in the hundred teens every single day,
So
and we
they
were
were so the
outside.
actors, that sweat they had in their clothes, that was real.
Most of it
Most
was
of it.
real. For episodes 5 through 8, most of it is real sweat. Episodes 1 through 4, a lot of it is cold, cold water being sprayed on them right before the cameras roll.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
appreciated that when, Jesus walk around and he's just like sweating and as he's got sweat on his brow. I thought that's a nice touch. That's
well, and honestly, shouldn't we probably have a few more bug bites
yeah.
throughout? I mean, there should be a big welt right here from the one,
Yeah.
the mosquito or the chiggers, whatever. I don't know if they had chiggers in Israel, I guess.
I don't know. They have them here.
That's right. Yeah, we sprayed in advance and
Uh-huh.
yeah, clear out the areas before because we're out in the middle of a pasture,
Right.
a place that hasn't seen humans, in years probably, and so we fogged the area and yeah, we were all worried about chiggers, but I don't think anybody had any really bad
Good.
case.
Because they can be real bad.
That's what I hear.
So the actors you guys got are really good. I mean, you guys hit a gold mine with Jonathan as Jesus. I mean, he's now the gold standard. If anyone's trying to ever make a Jesus movie or show, they're gonna have a hard time because I just can't imagine everyone not being compared to him now. He does such a great job. He's just everything about him is just fantastic as Jesus. How did you get him to come on?
Agreed. Dallas met him through an audition for another short film that he had done for his church called "The Two Thieves," and it was again, it's Jesus and is it Barabbas who's on
Uh,
the cross?
you mean the two thieves?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they're not named in scripture. The
They are. Okay,
tradition gives them a name. I only know the names in Spanish.
okay, okay. Well, anyway, that's not
Yeah.
important. It's the two thieves,
Uh huh.
and Dallas is focusing on their story, so it's a lot of backstory. And Jonathan had auditioned for one of the thieves,
Mm.
and when he and Dallas is like, well, no, you got to play Jesus. I
Yes.
mean, when we're talking about the Western depictions of Jesus, I mean, Jonathan has that look,
Mhm.
and he's of Assyrian descent, so he's got the olive skin tone,
Mm.
and just yeah, he embodies what we, you know, Westerners view Jesus as, and so physically he's got the gifts, but then the heart too. I mean, when we're talking about timing again, now I talked about the timing of my story getting involved in the Chosen. I do believe that Jonathan 5 years ago probably wouldn't have been ready to play the Chosen. He's at a place in his spiritual walk now where he can play Jesus, and he doesn't. And I don't want to speak too much for Jonathan, but he takes this role really, really heavily. He prays ceaselessly. That's an exaggeration. He prays a lot. Before scenes, he's praying. He's getting into his space, and I know, and I can say this because he's made this public. There have been times where he has just kind of said, "I am not worthy to do this. What am I doing?"
Yes,
I, you
I
know,
can see that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and then you see that come through in his eyes. You don't
Mm.
you don't see the "I'm not worthy to do this. I'm an actor." You don't see the actor part, but you see just in the subtleties of the tears welling up a little bit in his eyes as he's listening to the kids pray the Shema in episode 3, and just those little things like that, and the way and that's what I think Jesus is. It's not that he's olive skin and he's got the Kenny Loggins beard and all that stuff. It's just when he looks at you,
Yes.
you feel like he is looking at you and he is loving on you. And it's just he's got that down. So would Jonathan have been ready to do this 5 years ago? I don't know. So was it a timing thing? Was it the fear of people not wanting to do a show like The Chosen because you're adding backstory and some people are going to give you some negative feedback for that? Or was it God was grooming Jonathan to be Jesus? God was grooming Dallas through a failure to work on his humility because Dallas had some humility issues. He's the first to tell you about that. And is this just all, we can look at it from the human side and say we were all scared to do this, everybody's been scared, or we can look at it from the God side and say this might be the perfect timing that God had all along. The app 10 years ago, we couldn't have distributed this through an app.
That's true.
No.
That is
Maybe
absolutely true.
3 years ago, the technology probably didn't exist to do it in this way, the bandwidth and everything to
Yeah,
be able.
no, you're absolutely right. That would have been a very different. How do you get it out there without 10 years ago? That'd been a very whole different thing. I mean,
Yeah.
the apps and the technology of today has freed productions like your own to pursue very non-traditional means and be very successful at it. I mean, there's a possibility of success through a completely non-traditional approaches. And that's the technology that's available. So yeah, you're right. That would have been very hard to be as successful maybe 10 years ago. And
And tomorrow, God could pull the plug on it all. He
sure.
could pull the while we're sitting here, he could pull the plug on the show. He could pull the plug on everything.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. But just the fact that it has come together with this timing, and when you really look at it from a bird's eye view and just see how we're getting out to the world, how we were funded, how perfect Jonathan is for the role, how Dallas is groomed to be humble in his approach to directing this project, how I was, brought back from LA away from the acting side of things more. I mean, there's just so many timing elements that have kind of come together, and you feel like this is being orchestrated very specifically, and I have no doubt that it is.
I think so. Yeah. You know what I really, really like about Jonathan's portrayal when I say how he's just the gold standard? Obviously, the physical appearance is fantastic. I think it just really hits the mark. But what I really refer to is just his acting of it, his portrayal, and my favorite thing that Jonathan does, and what I appreciate so much is that he portrays a constant excitement about what the father is doing. So, he brings the fishes in and yet he himself is like he's excited about it. He makes the wine and he's excited. It's not like pious. I mean, he just hits that sweet spot where he's Jesus, he knows what he has the power to do and yet he's amazed at the work of the Father. And I think Jonathan just just really does that. His eyes, like you're saying, his face, he just can just really communicate that boyish excitement with what the father is going to do.
Right, and it's not a look of, hey, look what God did, or look what I'm doing through God. Yeah, I'm awesome. It's, look at how these people are reacting. Look at the joy that's being brought to their
And the
life.
glory that's being given to the father. And
Exactly.
it's just an excitement about that. It's just like, man, it's like in his eyes, I don't know if this is what he's thinking, I don't know his process or whatever, but it seems to me that he in his mind as Jesus, he's thinking, I got the greatest job on earth. Is just how it looks to me when he's doing. I'm like, oh, I like that so much.
Well, it all comes back down to love. He just loves on these people, and Jonathan is a very loving and giving professional actor,
Mm,
and that comes through in his portrayal
it
of
does.
Jesus
He
as
does.
a loving,
To
giving
me,
Savior.
yeah. To me, you guys just hit the gold standard with that. I mean, I really do think that that's just anyone trying to do a Jesus show now is going to be at disadvantage. They're going to be like, oh, where do we find one like this?
Right?
They're going to have a rough time.
Yeah.
So that's really good. How was it hard to get Eric Avari on there as Nicodemus, or how did that work out?
That's a really cool story too. Actually, Dallas's son Sam actually suggested Eric Avari as Nicodemus,
Mm,
and before The Chosen, I could hear the name Eric Avari, and it didn't register to me. He's one of these quintessential guys that's in everything.
yes.
And as soon as I see his face, I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, I remember him from so many things. And so Sam recommended him, and Dallas sent a really nice letter. And Eric had, for all intents and purposes, kind of retired and had moved out of Hollywood. And I don't want to speak for Eric, but he has said publicly that he was not thrilled with a lot of the violence
Mm.
and just negativity coming out of Hollywood, and he felt like he was contributing to that. And so a wholesome project like this that promotes love, yeah, he wanted in on this, and so
Cool.
I get in trouble if I use the word luck, and I don't want to,
No, that's
you know,
all right. I understand what you're
but
saying.
but there is, we can't take credit for any of this. I mean, it's just, it's God breathed luck.
Mhm.
It's not of our doing. It's just one of those. Sent the Dallas sent the letter and the script. Eric reacted to it positively. There were some other elements involved. Thank you.
That's
you
right.
know, um, but it came together wonderfully. And yeah, he is Nicodemus.
Yes.
For a man with an IMDb credit list that goes very very deep, a lot of people now identify him as Nicodemus. I mean that, and spoiler alert coming, but that scene in episode no 8, when he's crying against the
Mm.
wall
Mm.
as Jesus and the disciples are leaving, doesn't that just
Oh my.
heart?
No, that's yeah, that was like, and I loved how you guys worked him in that way where Nicodemus, you took what is I you took, John 3 where he shows true sincere belief in Christ and interest in the gospel, and you expanded that in a very responsible way, I thought. And 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 putting him in as a potential disciple and wanting to go, and yet at the same time having all this stuff he'd have to give up, and the torn with the family. And I just thought, wow, I loved how you guys, the way I look at it, I don't know if this is what you're doing or not, but this is my read on it, is that you guys are taking scenarios that are common, and you're finding places where you can put them into the gospel story. So that would be a very common scenario that I've dealt with as a missionary, where you have people that see all the truth there is. They understand, they see the gospel, but they see what it's going to cost them. And they may be wealthy, they may have family members who won't accept it or whatever, and then they have to make a choice. And often sadly, knowing the truth isn't enough for everybody. And sometimes the choice they make is not one that you wish they would. They make a choice that, like Nicodemus, is like, I can't do it, and they're torn. And I just thought it was a very beautiful way of showing that you know people could know who Jesus was and just not have the faith to make the choice they needed to make. And
Well, and that in and of itself is a parable too. I mean, Nicodemus not being willing to give up his material
yes,
possessions. Nicodemus, from what we understand from Scripture, was was pious. I mean, he was, one of
devout.
the Pharisees, very devout. Yeah, yeah. Pious has a negative connotation, but very, he knew the Scriptures. He was very faithful. He loved God. um, he didn't probably have a lot of the vices that some people today are unwilling to give up,
Mhm.
whether
Correct.
it's chemical dependency, or pornography addiction, or adultery, or it doesn't have to be a physical good. It doesn't have to be,
Mhm.
well, he's rich and he's not willing to give up a little bit of money to follow Jesus. Well, no, he really likes his party lifestyle and he's not willing to give up that. And I'm not trying to say that having fun, don't
No, I
misinterpret
get you. I get you.
this, but there are certain things that if we hold on to them too tightly, they they serve as a barrier to really connect
That's
us
right.
to Jesus.
And
And
then and putting it in episode 8 just juxtaposed it with Matthew, who had a lot of the
right,
same things, right? He had the wealth, he had the
no,
power, and yet when Jesus calls Matthew, drops everything.
no.
Gives the centurion Gaius the key and the ring, and never looks back. It's just like off he goes. And so it's
and
just
and
like really really good how that
and Paris Patel, who portrays Matthew just brilliantly,
brilliantly.
that the look that he gives at that moment, it's like, and he's talked about this. I can't remember if we've released this on social media yet or not, but he has. It's coming. It's coming. Matthew 1.0, Matthew 2.0.
Oh,
And he in his performance, in his body language, it changes. And I
yes.
remember the day we shot that scene. I had my phone and I was going Facebook Live, and I think I introduced it by saying something. We've got a character that's changing just a little bit in this scene, and then I flipped it around, and then it's Paris as Matthew, and he just has that little me, and just in that face that he makes there, and when he steps out and he stands up to Gaius for the very first time, and Gaius is just like, you've got it better than any other Jew right now.
Yes.
You're really willing to give that up to follow this guy? And
Yes.
Parr nails it, and it's just like, it's not a triumphant yes, it's just a really subtle but yes. And that to me as an actor, I love that when you can portray huge emotion in a really subtle response.
Excellent. That's
And so
right.
I just love Paris's
And like he
performance.
starts changing, his OCD starts going away. I mean, when you first see him, he's lock the door, and then when he gets called by Christ and becomes enraptured by Christ, you see that
Yes.
just fading away a little in his life, and it's like he has a different focus now than protecting his goods or whatever his possessions. So
Well, and it makes me jealous, and I know that envy is one of those good ones that we're supposed to have. Coveting is good for us as Christians, right? Because I've always been a believer. I don't, I don't have that all of a sudden, I'm called and then I'm leaving all this behind. So to see stuff like that, I'm like, man, I should have taken a really bad turn. And
I
don't get
know.
me wrong, I've taken a lot of, like, the straight and narrow has not always held me. Even when I talk, you can tell I go off on a lot of tangents. And in life in general, I take a lot of these winding paths. But it always, there's always a circuitous route that brings me back to this connection. So I don't have that Matthew moment that
Yeah.
Paris in the episode, but I can still relate to it and just really appreciate that.
I relate to it. I relate to that vicariously. I'm like you. I learned to read reading the Bible. That's how they
Uh,
taught me how to read, and I went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Sunday night my whole life, and been a missionary. I mean, there's just my whole life. I'm not saying I haven't sinned or and don't have
right.
problems with sin, but like being off in the world and overtly that way where other people could identify it. I haven't had that. So, but I do it vicariously because I was a missionary for a long time, seen a lot of people get saved, and that's you get close to it, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And at the same time, I tell people all the time, I was saved from all those things. I was saved before I did them, and
Right.
and everyone I've ever talked to, the people that I've dealt with and have been able to have a part in their conversion, they will all say, I would rather your life than mine. I'd rather
Right.
your story than mine, your testimony than mine.
It's just easy for me to get caught up in
Sure.
all the attention the prodigal gets.
Yes, it is. It's easy to be the older brother and not appreciate that
Yep.
he may have got a party, but you're the inheritor of all that's coming. So it's like, it's putting it into perspective.
But I want the party,
I
man.
know. It's funny how we are. I want the party. I don't care about the inheritance. Yeah. I thought Matthew was I liked there was in our church, and I assume this is how it is. Well, everyone I've talked to is this way. In our church, it's like a little bit of like almost a table game of which episode is the favorite. And so a lot of people really like Matthew's story. And so like Matthew getting called is their favorite. Others it's Nicodemus and the John 3 and then Jesus and Nicodemus having that very deep conversation, which I loved how they did it. Right? Jesus talking to the kids, he's like kid-like, but when he's talking to Nicodemus, he's like he's the rabbi.
Yeah.
And and he's like laying it on heavy on Nicodemus, and Nicodemus is, he's out of his depth, right?
Yeah.
Nicodemus is. So, but a lot of people that's their favorite. Mine is the eighth, the last one, Woman at the Well. I watched the whole series again when you agreed to the interview because I wanted to bone up a little bit on it, even though I've seen it a lot of times. And every time I watch the eighth, I just weep. I just sit there and cry because it's so. I mean, as a missionary, I've seen this story sort of. I've seen people kind of like her come to Christ. I've seen that reaction, and so when I see it, and it's the reaction I have to Christ. I mean, no one looking on my life from the outside would think I'm her, but if you could see me on the inside, I'm her. That's me, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I might not have done those things physically, but I know who I am on the inside. And so that's me. And so when I see Christ saying, I came all the way out here into this, I went where no one wanted me to go, and I came here and I'm sitting here for you. And it's just like, oh, it's so moving. I just thought they did such a great job with that.
Well, and what the line that gets me every time, and I'll probably cry just trying to say it here for you, when and Vanessa De Silvio does a fabulous job portraying the woman at the well, who we named Fatina, and there's actually historical documentation that I think applies that name to her.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I might be incorrect on that. I should do more research before I make that claim. But anyway, she has this line of, "I'm rejected by others," and
Yes.
and Jesus just looks at her. I know, but
Yes.
not Messiah.
I know. It's just,
and
oh,
and, and it
it's,
just for me, and I again, I look, I'm a middle-aged white dude. I don't really truly know what oppression is. I don't know what it's like to be a true outcast. But I grew up bullied. I truly did. I grew up in a small town where drinking was highly prevalent, and I spoke out against it probably more than I should have. I probably really came across as a Pharisee or whatever.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but I got bullied a little bit because of it, and I was dating a girl that was kind of in that crowd, and I was trying to pull her out of the crowd and everything. So I several times people tried to pick fights with me. I spent a New Year's Eve hiding in a locked bathroom because a crowd of guys wanted to beat me up. So I'm not comparing that with some of these marginalized groups and some of the things that they go through on a daily basis. This is something
Yes.
I went through 25, 26 years ago. But it hurt, and I was rejected by that group, and it put me in places where I walked in fear at school. I was called names, and I hated it. And so I, as an adult now, have a particular affinity towards people like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That from the outside looking in, and look, I was popular for all intents and purposes. I was an athlete. You know, I don't have the typical things that you would see in somebody that would be bullied,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's kind of who I go for now, and
Yeah.
try to reach is not the ones that are obviously in a marginalized group, but those that are just on the borderline.
Mm.
And I can see, and one of my leadership skills is being an empath, so I can connect and I can relate to these people really quickly. I can see hurt in people's eyes, generally pretty quickly. I'm trying to get better at that because that's I feel like that's my calling, is to reach those people, and the ones that are rejected, and try to let them know that the Messiah doesn't reject you.
That's
And I
right.
would never use those words. That's the thing. That's not me at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jesus loves you. If they're not ready to hear that, they're gonna bolt. I mean, it starts with me, and then hopefully seeing
Yes.
Jesus through me, and then if that leads to further conversation, great. If not, I've at least planted the seed.
Mm.
It's not my job to convert. It's my job to plant a seed and then let Jesus or let God grow it. Whatever
Yeah. Well,
analogy you want to
that
use.
really resonated because I've actually been in situations, not at a well, and not speaking of myself, obviously, but I've been in situations dealing with people who have been rejected by family, kicked out of their houses, have nothing, and when they understand that Jesus doesn't reject them, it makes all the difference in the world. And that reaction she had really rang true. I mean, I have seen that reaction, and you guys really nailed that. And what you were able to do with a hill and a tarp and two actors was phenomenal. I mean, it really was. It was phenomenal. To me, it was this my favorite episode, and I love how it ends with the slow motion walking, the the modern like music, and they're going down. And because like in all the other movies, they'd be like going down to like blow up a village or something. They're going down and they're going down to save souls. I just love that the way it ends with that typical Hollywood scene, kind of a look at the end, but very atypical purpose that it was all about. I thought that was a good touch.
Well, and there's a handful of people that don't like that song. Trouble gonna find you here, and this is Jesus. Don't attribute trouble with my Jesus. Jesus was a troublemaker. I mean,
Yes. No,
he
that was
felt
a great song. It was a great choice because it's like all of that, and it's to me it was like painting an entire thing, and I could just if it was a Hollywood movie, the next scene would be the village getting blown up, right, and all the people that did her wrong blown up or whatever, something like that. Where this
well
is
that
him going
that
down, and he's gonna as we know the story, right? He's gonna save the village, and so it's like great.
well we're gonna take a little artistic license there, and we're blowing up the village. The first scene of episode 1 of season 2.
Spoiler
Big
alert! Yes, give us the spoiler.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We actually the DeLorean comes in with a helicopter and it's dropping napalm, and it's gonna be epic.
Yeah, it's gonna be epic. We were hoping you'd bring in a few spoilers for us for the second season.
Well, that's the only spoiler I'll give you.
Okay, okay.
I'm not gonna describe
Well,
the
you
Transformers
heard
episode.
they heard it here first. Oh man, that's so great. Um, I was gonna ask you how is it going with season two as far as getting ready for that? Where you guys? I know you got. I think you're. Last I saw you got all but 3 episodes funded. Is that where you're at now with funding?
No, we're almost to 6, I
Oh,
believe. So we're green lit to shoot episodes 1 through 4 of season 2, and we're gonna do that hopefully starting in October, late September,
nice.
October. So episodes one through
Do you
four.
have a target date when you think they'll be available to be seen?
We haven't publicly released
Okay.
that yet. We're still there's yeah, with COVID and with everything, there's just an added element of unknown.
Yes.
And again, luckily we've got a faithful God that has perfect timing and is
Yes.
bigger than all of this. But He has granted us the ability to shoot the first 4 episodes of season 2 coming up this fall. And beyond that, we're still just humbly waiting for guidance.
Yes.
But we're proceeding, yeah, to
Well,
do
that's
those.
good news. We're all waiting very with bated breath for the
Well,
next ones.
what's really fun about us, yeah, this might sound self-serving, but we kind of lift the umbrella or pull the curtain. We're not the show is the wizard, but we let you see the actual wizard behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're on set, I'll be going live on Facebook and giving anybody that's following us on Facebook or Instagram, we'll go live and you'll see little snippets. We'll talk to the actors. We're introducing a few more people. Thomas was only in 1 episode in season 1, but he's back, of course.
Nice.
Might have another disciple or two joining the
Okay.
crew.
Cool.
So you'll get to meet those people for the very first time while we're shooting. So here I'll do my plug quick now.
Yes. Do that.
If you're not following us on Facebook, facebook.com/inside the chosen. That's
Okay.
where you get the most up-to-date information. And then we're on Instagram at the chosen TV series. We're even on TikTok now.
Oh wow.
So if you're a little younger than, well, I shouldn't say that because I'm on TikTok too, just trying to figure it out.
Right.
And because I've got nothing to hide from China, right?
Yeah. Are you guys on Twitter at all?
We are. We're
Okay.
on Twitter. We it took us a while to get established on Twitter. We for so long we were so small. I mean, it was Dallas and me for the most part running most of our social media for the longest time, and now we've added more people to the team, so we've been able to branch off into TikTok.
Well, we'll
Because if
put the
Dallas and I were responsible for TikTok, it would fail right away
yeah,
miserably. We've
yeah.
got Larissa, who is just phenomenal and young and energetic and loves the show, and she's doing a wonderful job over on TikTok. And we've got Mac and Julie and Jenny that are handling Instagram and Facebook, and Carla is working on Facebook too. I mean, we've just got a wonderful group of
Sounds
people
like you
that
got a good team working on that. We'll put
we
the
do
links in our description, and so people can
great.
go and follow you guys on that and be a part of that. On the
And
on
let me just say
Go
this,
ahead.
like not to derail it too much,
No,
but
yeah, go ahead.
as far as Freeborn goes too, um, it helps. The more people that follow us, the better the the algorithms treat us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a member of Freeborn and you aren't following on social media, please follow, and then like their posts and comment on their posts and repost their posts. That's how the reach improves. That's
Mm.
how the reach gets further out there. So any cause that you believe in and that you support, whether it's Freeborn, whether it's The Chosen, whether it's Nike, if you want that brand out there more, do your part of liking and commenting.
So that's
And
something that our viewers can do for you guys is to do the following and liking it, and reposting,
yeah,
resharing these things. Excellent.
it helps so much. It helps, and our app is in every country in the world, so it's out there. We just need to have it hit at the right time in front of the right set of eyes, not because we want them to then pay it forward and finance future seasons, but because we want this message to get to
Yes.
those eyes. So
Well, I'm a huge fan not only of the show, but I really like the pay it forward system
yeah,
you guys done. I think that is just I think it from a spiritual side, I like it, and I like it from a business side. I don't know how it's worked out business wise for you, but I like it better. So when you guys first did it, you had a thing where you just bought the show, you could pay for it, and you could see it, and I bought it right away, and I bought it for a couple people. But then when you came out with the pay it forward, it just like moved me so much. I put a lot more money into that than I would have ever buying DVDs or merchandise. I was like, oh, I like that. And so, however much I was able to do several times, I put money in. I encourage other people. I have people that I know wouldn't have ever spent, say, $100 on the show, but they would spend $100 on Pay It Forward.
right.
And so to me, it was just like a brilliant system. How did you guys come up with that?
Well, we learned fairly early on that the easier we made it to watch the show, the more money the business brought in. And so I psychologically speaking, I am really interested, or sociologically, I guess is the more appropriate term, just the way we as consumers react. When we're told to spend money on something, we don't like to do it.
Mm,
But when we're given the choice, it's just the whole free will thing. God knows what he's doing with that too. When we have the option to do it or not, I think we are more compelled to want to do it. When
especially
it's
if we feel we're doing it for others as opposed to
exactly,
ourselves.
exactly, and the pay it forward system is that. Yes, you're contributing to us making future episodes, but you are also making those the I don't know what the right terminology is, but every time somebody watches an episode on an app, it costs a little bit of money.
Sure.
And so paying it forward, you're offsetting those costs so that somebody in Iraq can watch The Chosen. I mean, how awesome is that?
That
In
is
North
awesome.
Korea, I mean, they're seeing it in places that the gospel really has a tough
Yeah,
time
I've
getting.
gotten a number of messages through your app thanking me for making it possible for them to see it. And
Hmm.
and when I tell people how it is, they're like, "Well, how much does it cost?" I'm like, "No, you don't understand how it works. You get to watch it for free because someone else paid for it." Which is so gospel centric, right? I mean, it's like you get it for free because someone else paid for it.
Yeah.
And so when they're like, "Oh," and then you watch and you're like, "Well, now I got to pay something because I want someone else to be able to see this." And the only way they're going to see it is if I pay for it. And so that the whole psychological element of that, I think, is just brilliant. I'm really a fan of just that. I mean, that alone to me is like a great thing about the show.
Well, and I think it would be foolish of us to take credit for coming up with that. I mean, I just think there's more to it than what some men and women are doing here. It's we're not coming up with these ideas. We're getting these ideas
Sure,
downloaded to us. So
sure.
it's worked out. I mean, from a business standpoint, it's worked out, and we're super thrilled about that. From a ministry standpoint, that's even more exciting
Is
to me.
that where the majority of your funding for this season second season has come from, through the Pay It Forward, or do you still have the crowdfunding open, or how are you
No,
doing it?
at this point, we haven't had investments open for season two. So everything that we've made so far has been through Pay It Forward or through merchandise sales, DVDs, Blu-rays, a portion of those proceeds, and a portion of our shirts. The
Yeah.
chosenmerch.com is where you can get your great. And I'm only wearing long. I'm sweating. I'm wearing long sleeve because all my short sleeve ones are in the laundry. We've got great
You
stuff
got
like
great
that.
shirts. My favorite one, and it was dirty, so I couldn't wear it today, is the Binge Jesus.
And
I
Jesus,
saw
yep.
I saw Dallas with that. Where at the very beginning, I'm like, I have got to get one of those. And
Well, and that's and I love that you like that because that is one of those phrases that has caused a
I
little bit
bet
of
it
stress
has.
because binge has such a negative connotation, but the word binge just means to do something in excess.
Yes.
You can binge good things. I can binge love. I can binge Jesus. I can
Yes.
binge scripture. That's a good
That's a
thing.
great thing. That's right. That's the kind of gluttony that's never forbidden in the Bible.
Right.
God is never going to say you love Jesus too much.
Right, right. Well, and luckily this world doesn't have a gluttony problem at all,
No,
right?
no, they have a starvation problem when it comes to Jesus.
Well, there, that, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, I love that shirt. And so you didn't have it for a while. And so I kept looking and watching when you got it. I'm like, yes. And so I got it and I wore it to church that first time. Everyone was all jealous because everybody at our church wanted one. So when they
Well,
saw,
we do rotate our merch out. I
uh-huh.
mean, there's the FOMO aspect of it. Fear of missing out. We take a product off. Hopefully, people will not wait too long. But also, it's just we're small.
Yeah.
Even our shirt company, which we did a really cool video. Dallas went down there and interviewed Brett and Stephanie Parker, who
Yes, I
run
saw
the
that.
company. Yeah, and so they don't have the manpower to have 30 products on hand at any given time. So we
Correct.
need to rotate just to be sensible in what we're doing with our loaves and fishes. So we'll be introducing more merchandise, and of course we'll tell people on social media when something new is available.
Nice.
But yeah, they're good conversation starters too.
Yes, they are.
Binge
And you guys did
Jesus.
the masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the gator licks.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, and that has caused some issues too. You can't wear masks. You're just giving in to
Oh no.
well, hey,
Yeah.
the rules are the rules. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, see,
I drive
I work
most
in
of the stuff.
construction. I'm a construction worker and we have to. And
Oh
so,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, if I want to be on the job site, I have to wear one. So it's just the way
right.
it
It's
is.
it's not a political thing. It's just this is what is required right now. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do
And
it.
even if it's political higher up, it's not with me. It's like I just have to make my living, and I
Exactly.
have to wear a hard hat. I have to wear safety glasses. I have to wear a reflective vest. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
rules that they put on the job site. And the like the general contractors where I work in commercial construction. They don't care either. They just care that their lawyers tell them if people get this disease on the job site, they can sue us. And
Yeah.
if we haven't done our due diligence to prevent it. So if we say we don't want to, we don't believe in this and we're not going to do it, and someone gets sick, they can sue us because they can say you were aware of these problems, you were aware of the CDC recommendation, you didn't abide by it. And so that's
Mhm.
all it is to them too. They're not trying to make a statement. They just don't
No,
want to get
no,
sued. And
right.
you and I don't want to make a statement. We just need to go to work. And so it's,
I
maybe
need to get.
somebody somewhere needs to make a statement, but
Right.
it's not me.
No, I need to get groceries. I'm gonna wear my mask. It,
That's
it,
right.
it doesn't, I'd rather not, but if I need groceries.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So no, so we have a lot of people in the church who have those because they're in situations similar to mine and they wear their chosen
Awesome.
mask and their chosen shirt. So that was cool. You guys put out one of
Yeah.
those the gate. I guess they call them the gator necks, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Well, man, it has been so great talking to you. I know you're real busy. I hear your phone going off and stuff. So,
Oh,
um,
I'm sorry. I had turned
no,
off.
no,
I thought
it's
I had
not a
turned off the
problem.
notifications, but
No, that's not a problem at all. I really appreciate the time you've given us. It's yeah, I've been it's been very interesting. I've been wanting to talk with somebody there for a while. So this has been great. And I really wish you guys the best on the second season. I'm really looking forward to it. And I know that the people in our church and the people that I recommended to are desperately awaiting
yeah.
season 2. We can't wait to see what comes next. And
Well,
we're
and that's what makes us, of course, we want to get this message out to the world, but the response that people have given us and the excitement built around the show makes us just super excited to get more content out there for
I bet
people
it does.
to
And
watch because they're loving it.
and you guys are still planning on like 8 seasons?
I think we're going to try for seven now.
Okay.
Because seven is one of those biblical
Yes, it
numbers
is.
that seems to make sense. So that's going to be the goal now is 7 seasons, and we're probably going to try to do them faster than slower. This was a pretty decent gap, but between season 1 and season
Mhm.
2, but a lot of that had to do with just the world.
Yes.
2020 is not what anybody saw coming. so
No.
so we're all making adjustments here,
Yeah.
but yeah, the goal is I think right now 7 seasons, and then who knows what happens after that.
Yeah. Well, we're really looking forward to them. And thank you so much, Justin, for being with us. Give
Thank
our regards to the entire crew. We're praying for all of you. We're hoping for you to have tremendous success, both spiritually in the gospel and also as a business. I hope that you guys do really well on it. You finally put out a show that I like for whatever that's worth. I mean, but I love it. I am just all in on this. And
that means so much, Mike. I mean that really does, and it's these individual relationships. So please stay in touch with me, and
absolutely.
let me know what else I can do to bless you and your church. And be watching for us on set. Get to see some live stuff while it's happening,
I
which is
will. We will
kind
definitely, and we promote your show on our podcast all the time,
of
both the
awesome.
show and tell people, hey, you've always been complaining there's nothing good to watch on TV. Now you have the best show that's ever been made on TV, secular or Christian. It is the best show. Go support it. So we're constantly pushing. I am and our sermons and everything. I mean, they almost probably think I'm an investor. I'm not. I don't have anything riding on it. I just love it. But but
We,
yes,
we
we will definitely, and
have
I'll keep
that.
in touch. Maybe we can get together and have a little chat when you got season 2 up
Yeah,
and talk a little bit about what's going on. I'd love to talk to you again.
sounds great, man. Thanks so
Great.
much.
Thank you for your time. Have a
Uh,
great day and God bless you, sir.
you too, brother.
All right. Bye.